grid, and the recording lights. Histogram that could be converted into waveforms also, the monitor brightness. And all of these menus are available by within a touch of a button. I think that is amazing. And a short little information on the IBIS, in-body stabilization, 7.5 stops. So pretty much if you handhold your camera and move it around however you want it will give that little great documentary feel footage, video footage, excuse me. And jumping into the quality sound, 32-bit float audio, which is amazing. We have gotten great feedbacks about 32-bit float. So pretty much if you want to record in a pretty much if you want to record in a concert or any kind of loud environment, you could omnidirect. You could choose wherever you want to record your audio, and from there you could gain back the parts of the audio you want to use without being corrupted. And with the ISO, we have dual native ISO, low at 800 and high at 6400. That'll be easily converted to your camera. And this is where it gets best. The R3D NE, the 12-bit R3D code, and what it is able to offer you is that you're able to overexpose your footage whenever you want to. You see, as a DP, we always fear about overexposing so that we can't gain back the data of that footage. But what Red Code is able to offer you is that never be afraid about overexposing, as you have so much data available. You have the flexibility of gaining back all the data that is available in your footage, which is, I think, the best part of the Red technology. And yeah, and also you're able to apply different kind of LUTs to your footage and see the brilliance of the Red color science. And just to give you a brief sense of what's coming, the MC N10 grip from Nikon is already available, but the smaller cage is in a bit of a delay, so it should be coming soon to rig it up to be a full cinema camera. And awesome. I just want to give you little options about our package. It is offered only as body only of $21.99. It comes with 35, 50, and 24 to 50. And with the great price of just $21.99, it shoots up to 6K 60 frames per second also. And thank you. And our mission for this camera is to bring you best of both worlds of Nikon's precision and amazing color science of red. So with that, with no longer ado, that is the end of the information of the ZR, and I pass it along to our amazing Alex about the creative side of how you shoot with the ZR. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. I got my own. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Hi, everybody. How are we all? Oh, excellent. Thank you for coming. As I get set up here. All right. So, as you can see, my name is Alex Gorosh. I'm a commercial director, filmmaker, documentary director also. I have been brought in because I have real world experience with cameras. I don't know as much of the technical details as these guys, but I will do my best to give you, like, just from my perspective, why this is an exciting camera, an exciting time to be a filmmaker, an exciting time to be alive. So just as a bit of my backstory, just so you know that I'm not just a random guy, these are the list of clients: Verizon, Kind, Nikon, Outward Bound, Hershey's, Cool House, Nottam, Gap, Ford, just Xbox, a bunch of big projects. And to give you guys just a quick history lesson about myself, just so you kind of get some context. I grew up in Michigan. My parents were nice enough to come out here and support, which is nice. They're visiting from out of town. If they lived here, they wouldn't be coming for this type of thing. I grew up and I started basically my career as like a one-man band. So I made videos for anyone that had like $100 that I was like, it was for my summer camp and my high school, and anyone that was willing to give me a shot, and I would go and make a video. So I would be, shooting, directing, editing, producing, the whole deal. And basically that's how I got my start, and I kind of just got bigger and bigger clients over the years. I did a lot of projects that weren't super exciting. It's sort of like eventually they became more and more exciting. I was always trying to work on projects that were things that I cared about, whether it was like making the world a better place, environmental causes. I still do a lot of nonprofit work, but you know, you got to pay the bills, so there's a lot of corporate clients in there as well. And I've been lucky enough, so I started out as a more of a one-man band, a one-person crew, and then over the years, now I learned how to work with other people too. And so I still do plenty of work where it's like just me going out with the camera, but you know, I can scale up as needed, and I have plenty of experience working with, I have some experience working with larger format cameras, but usually when there's budget for that, I'll hire a DP that knows more of what they're doing than me. But I've spent a lot of time shooting documentary content, and these days it's always on Nikon, and it's always, it depends on the client, but I try to stay light and quick and still getting as good of image quality as I can, but with the tools that I have with me. So this is just a little bit more backstory. A buddy of mine and I started a YouTube channel. It's called To Scale. We have 250,000 subscribers. It's not a ton, but it's enough that we got some attention. We've only made like a handful of videos. And now we're in partnership with BBC Studios trying to turn this series into a doc series that you could stream. These are a few of the interview frames I've done. You can see work for Starbucks. This stuff is for Nikon. And stuff in Tokyo and Kenya and Tanzania and Northern California and all over the place. So yeah, I've been all over. I've worked in like 20 some countries. Been very lucky enough to travel and have a good time. This is me celebrating after I got a cool shot. This was like a couple months ago. I was on a shoot. I'm finishing up actually today. If all goes as planned, we'll be delivering the final files for this project for De Beers, the diamond company. This is the other angle of the same shot. It was really pretty. I was excited. Yeah. This is the Black Rock Desert. This is where they do Burning Man every year. So this is my buddy Wiley. We started the YouTube channel together, and our thing is that we make giant scale models for anything in nature that's like too big or too small to understand. And so De Beers saw that. We made one that was about time. We made a whole, you saw that?
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Were you putting these lights on?
Yeah,
So that's you.
that's us.
My
Yeah.
God.
Well, cool, thanks.
Check this out.
And what do you
Yeah.
do with the
Listen,
New
Lord,
Yorker?
Lord, give us a
I'm a
minute.
big New Yorker fan.
Oh, cool. I made one documentary years ago. It was about police pursuits in Los Angeles. It was like about how LA is obsessed with police pursuits. It was an interesting project, yeah. So yeah, this was for De Beers. We should be finishing the second film for them today, which is great. I'm very excited to be done with it. It was a really fun project, but the edit was a little bit of some turmoil, but it's all good. All right, so this was a production, like behind the scenes of that same project. This was before this camera was available. These are Z6 IIIs that are mounted up here. Here's a closer look at my rig for that project. I had like just gotten a bunch of these accessories. I was very excited about them. Does anyone know the main reason why you'd want to accessorize a camera like this? Because it makes you look more professional. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Because the client wants to see your matte box on your monitor.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have a matte box, like you're not even a filmmaker, you know. No, I mean, yeah. Well, if it's a good client, it's worth it. So that is kind of true. That's the answer I was looking for. It's also, you know, batteries and monitors, and the matte box does help. But I really like this whole system, and like, you know, it's not just Nikon, but I just love the fact that you can take a camera like this and you can dress it up to make her nice and beautiful for, like, you know, this looks like a legit, you know, they can't really tell how small the camera is. It just looks like a nice camera. Or you can keep it small and compact like this. Yes, you have a question?
You can always make a smaller camera bigger. You can't make a bigger camera smaller.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you want a small camera. So like I was saying, I do a bunch of documentary work, and there's always a barrier between you and who you're filming. So if anyone's been on camera before, you know that it's kind of hard to be yourself. It's like at least for me, I always thought like, you're just answering questions, this is easy. And then the first time I was interviewed, I was like, was very nervous, and it's very hard to just like be yourself sometimes. So the smaller, I found that the smaller the camera is, the smaller the barrier is. There's other factors too. I try to like minimize how many other people are listening in, and there's other things. But when you just pop this on a little tripod, and like it doesn't really feel as intimidating as something like that would. So I find that having options to do this is really helpful for getting that sort of like performance that you want in a documentary setting. And also for gimbals and things, like it's just really nice that you can float around with this and not too heavy. All right, so now we're on to the ZR. So this is Nikon and RED's first baby, which is very exciting. For anyone, you probably all know, Nikon acquired RED last year at some point? 2023, yeah. Thank you. And this is their first kind of like camera that they've made together. It's the first camera that Nikon has made that's like specifically for cinema use. And basically what that means is that you can still take photos with it. It's just like built for cinema users. So as David kind of mentioned quickly, the user interface is all like, it's all the tools that cinematographers typically need right at your fingertips. It's the stuff that you need first, and you can customize the menu of all of Nikon's cameras, but it's just really nice that it's designed with that in mind. And there's not a ton of, I love the Z6 III, but it has buttons all over it. Sometimes I'm hitting them by accident, and most of them I don't quite really need. And this has fewer buttons, which is awesome. It's all like touchscreen on this like enormous monitor, which is like truly one of the big draws. I didn't think that I would care that much about the monitor because I'm usually using an external monitor, but especially with autofocus, and Nikon's autofocus is like, for me, it really changed the way that I shoot because I rely on it pretty much all the time nowadays. You just tap who you want in focus, and the algorithm is amazing for being able to follow and come back, and it's incredible. But having a huge screen like this is really helpful for that. It's bright enough that you can use it outside. It's like even when you're setting up a shot, I'm typically like, if I'm a one-man band, I'll turn my external monitor around and I'll see how they're gonna look once the person comes in that I'm filming them. But nowadays, you don't really need to. You can just flip that around, which is also great for, influencers that are trying to film themselves a lot. So it's really helpful for that. It's like definitely big enough that you can at least get a sense of what the frame looks like. And so yeah, it's just like it's very exciting. And the specs, like what's inside, I know David went over them, but I'm going to go through a bunch that I'm excited about. So 6K, it can record 4K at 60 frames a second. It can record 120 frames a second at 1080. And then you can go all the way up to 240 frames a second if you go down to HD. You can only do that with H.265 codecs, and we'll get to the codecs in a second. But for me, that's like usually the spec that I look at first when a new camera comes out. I'm like, how smooth is the slow motion going to be? How slow can we make it? And so that's very exciting for me. And it's like I was talking about the monitor. It's amazing. So the 32-bit float audio. I'm not a bit like, for me, audio is like a little bit of voodoo. Like I know it's super important, and I am happy to like spend money to get good audio. I'm not a technician. I don't know anything what goes into it. But from what I understand, 32-bit float is like, it's also pretty game-changing in the industry. It means that you don't really have to worry about your levels. So like when you are recording audio in the past, you've always had to be like, hang on, can you talk for me? I have to check my levels and make sure that this is set right, so that, same with like checking exposure on a camera. With 32-bit float, from what I've heard, you can't make noises loud enough that it will clip. It's like you can't do it. Like there's no noises on Earth that are so loud that 32-bit float like can't handle it.
Up to 1,500 decibels.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is, but it's louder than anything on Earth, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Well, movie theaters like only 70 decibels.
Right, and it's like, and that's like an exponential scale too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 1,500 decibels. Thank you.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's really crazy. And so you can do that not only with the internal mics, but you can plug in external mics and you can still get that same quality from the audio. And that's something that like to be honest, like I never rely on in-camera audio, but now that that's there, I feel like that's going to change the way my workflow is also. I typically record audio to an external source and then I sync it up later. And that process has gotten a lot easier, but nowadays I could still record that, but also plug it into the camera and have both, or just use the camera audio. It's pretty amazing. Dual base ISO is also huge, especially for low light situations. So like 800 is the low ISO. That's the base ISO, so like minimal noise. And then the high ISO for the dual base is 6400. So to be honest, like there's still some noise that you get when you go up to 6400, but it's like it's pretty remarkable for what you get in terms of low light. And if you're using DaVinci or there's really great like noise reduction software out there now. So it's amazing what you can do in low light. I'm very impressed by it.
How's the noise at the super high ISOs like 100,000 and above? Because like the FX3, it's still able to have usable noise at like 100,000 ISO.
I mean, usable is a relative term.
Yeah.
My philosophy in general is get the shot, and if it's noisy, like you can either fix it or just deal with it. Like so. To be honest, I'm always trying to get the best image quality possible, but the best image quality is having the image. It's like, get the shot. So I rarely will go above, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000 ISO.
But if you're in the middle of the wilderness at night.
Yeah, but if I will absolutely crank it up, and it does get like a little noisy, but it's still like, it feels like you're looking, like it feels like you can see in the dark.
Yeah,
like if you have a fast lens on. It depends on what you're making. You know, if you're making like a feature film and the rest of your footage looks normal and then all of a sudden there's this grainy shot, like maybe that's a problem. If you're making a documentary and like a key piece of it happens and the shot's grainy, like nobody's gonna care. You know, it's like tell a good story, and I'm not gonna say you can shoot anytime, any place, like, but it's amazing what they can do, and you do have some noise, but yeah, the noise reduction is like pretty amazing too. So. Yeah, so shutter angle is also great. I feel like you all, who knows what shutter angle is? No, great, perfect. I can teach something. So shutter angle, most mirrorless cameras, they have a shutter speed. So you typically want to shoot at, and sorry if people know this already, but it's whatever your shutter speed is, you want it to be half the amount of time that the frame is exposed for. So like let's say we're recording at 24 frames a second, which is typically what I'm using and what most cinema-minded people go for, 24 frames a second. Half of that would be, so that's 1/24th of a second, that's how much each frame is exposed. Half of that is 1/50th of a second. It's technically 1/48th of a second, but the closest measurement is 1/50th of a second. And so that's the setting that most cinematographers would use. They would say at 24 frames a second, I want to be a 1/50th shutter speed, because that's what looks to us, you would say, the most normal. And what that means is that when someone's moving, you get the right amount of motion blur of their movements. If you go a less of a shutter, or a faster shutter speed, you get that jittery effect, which is fine. It's a look. I'm not saying that your image is ruined. And on some shots, like you wouldn't even notice if it's like just an interview or something. But generally, that's the rule of, that's like what people go for, is 1/2 of what the frame's exposed for. When that is the case, when you're using shutter speed in a camera, then when you change the frames a second, so like let's say I'm going up to 60 frames a second, then you also have to change the shutter speed. So half of 1/60th of a second. Does anyone want to do some math? 1/120th of a second. Very good.
Take the frame rate and double it. It's another way to do it.
Yeah, take the frame rate and double it, but it's like a fraction. So, but yeah, that's the idea.
I just double it.
There you go. So basically, with shutter angle, you don't have to do those calculations. So shutter angle, it's a film thing. It has to do with like when the film's going through the camera, like the shutter angle of what it's looking at. I can't explain more than that. I don't quite get it.
Scene you've ever seen, it's normal speed, but if it's a little faster, they go to a skinny shutter. Or a driving scene, want it to look a little faster, or Saving Private Ryan when they're storming.
Yeah, I was gonna say Saving Private Ryan. Yeah.
It just looks a little faster.
Yeah. So it's a look. Yeah, people use it specifically for action sequences and things like that. Yeah.
We do a slow shutter, and it's very shmeary. It's the opposite.
And with the shutter angle, so if you set it to 180 degrees, that means you're always at like the normal shutter speed. So if you are at 24 frames a second at 180 degrees, because we're using shutter angle instead of shutter speed, that's going to be 1/50th of a second. That's the right shutter speed that you want. If you then switch to 60 frames a second, which I do often to get that slow motion, it automatically will go up to 1/20th of a second for the shutter speed. So it's basically just another feature. This is actually, it was exciting because I had a call with Nikon engineers like in Japan a few years ago, and they were like, what do cinematographers want in a camera? And that was one of the things I told them, so you're welcome. I mean, I'm sure everyone else would say the same thing, but it's like it's a nice thing that you don't have to worry about that. You just change the frames per second, and then you're all set. 15 stops of dynamic range. I don't have a ton of real-world experience with this camera yet. I got it like 2 days ago, and I'm very excited. And I have a lot of experience with the Z6 III, and that camera has 10.5 stops of dynamic range. And I've been really impressed with it. I'm so excited about that camera. And the fact that this has 15 is pretty huge. Dynamic range, for anyone that doesn't know, is just like, it's how much you're able to see in the darks and the lights. That's 15 stops, so an f-stop, and that's, you get a ton of information in the shadows and the highlights. And that's pretty much it for the specs. This is, the size thing is really amazing to me. So the Z6 III, I was already like so excited about how small it was. And the ZR is smaller, not by a ton, but you lose the viewfinder up there. It's smaller and has a bigger screen. And it's just really, it's a pleasure. And then, yeah, this is like, it's small enough to use in like this kind of setting. This in-body stabilization is huge. Apologies if folks already know about this too. When I first started like filming with a DSLR on my Canon 5D, all my footage looked like this because I didn't know what I was doing, but also because I didn't have stabilization. I finally got a lens with stabilization in the lens, which helped. But these cameras have stabilization in the camera. The sensor actually moves with your jitters to compensate for it, which also feels like magic to me. I don't really understand how they do that, but they do it, and it's amazing. So it's not like a digital, your iPhone digitally smooths things out and you like lose a little bit of information. I'm not saying that the alternative is an iPhone, but this is optically, the sensor is moving based on where it needs to be, and it's pretty remarkable technology.
I currently have 5D.
You have a 5D?
Canon 5D Mark III.
Nice, very cool. Great, so that's my spiel. I'm happy to open it up to questions, concerns, thoughts on life, whatever you want to do. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add for the shutter speed versus angle. In cinema, it became angle because of the mirror inside that blocks the light going to the negative and letting the light to the viewfinder.
Mm-hmm.
So they figure out half of it open, half of it closed as it goes, so you get the same light to the viewfinder as that goes into the film. And that was the 180 as it goes around.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can go in with tools and make it skinnier,
Mm-hmm.
but then it changes the amount of light going to your eye.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of why it became the standard back in the day. And
Yeah, that's interesting.
that was the shutter going around in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you talk about the electronic viewfinder and how much you're going to use it and how good it is? So versus that big screen.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like bright sunlight behind you, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So we don't know much about the EVF yet. I think these guys would know more than me. But David, you said they've announced that they're going to make one, but we haven't seen like pictures of it. No, not at all.
Oh, yeah, because it's more a film.
Yeah. So at first I was put off by that. I was like, but what about on a bright day?
That has 1,000 nits. You don't need anything.
It's got a really bright. It's got a really bright screen, which is great.
Is there something like a wood or something that you can
Yeah, but Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if there's something you can put on here. I mean, I'll say that I typically will have, when I'm using an external monitor, I always have. Oh, I don't always have it. Not in these pictures. Yeah, I usually have a sunshade on these monitors. I'm guessing they'll figure out something for that.
Yeah, they will. But the EVF is in the works. We've heard, but it's something they're in production, but we haven't seen an image or any prototype just yet. So if they will come out, they will be on Nikon's website, and yes.
Yeah, and it'll go right here.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It is a hot shoot, so you could add on a mic on top of there too. Yes.
It's Nikon's first electronic hot shoe.
Digital hot shoe.
Digital hot shoe.
Digital. Not only that, it also records into digital audio.
Yeah.
You have an HDMI out on that, right?
Micro HDMI.
But if you
Yeah.
you could go out to a Zacuto or something like that. So
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are third-party HDMI-based EVFs. I know that's not a first-party one, but there are existing third-party ones.
Yeah, but they are going to be coming out, and if you're worried about that, it definitely would help. It's also, I think, nice that you can put it on or off depending on your needs, because if you're on a gimbal, even that extra bit of weight all day, it's going to make a difference. So scale up as needed. Any other questions for now? Yes.
So my
sorry.
son here says that my Nikon lenses from the 7200 and 7000 would fit that, but with an adapter. Is that correct?
Yes, the FTZ adapter. I did a project with Vincent over here. This is another Nikon ambassador. Yeah. Vincent Versace, amazing photographer. We did a project that was specifically about it's called the FTZ adapter, and it's just what it sounds like, F to Z. So those lenses, they could be F mount, but they might even be older.
They're F mount.
They're F mount.
Yeah, I was telling you can just get an adapter for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get an adapter, and it works with the autofocus. It's pretty seamless. Yes, Vincent?
Nikon's design philosophy is that the lens you bought in 1962 will work on the camera you own today. It may not have the functionality of the cameras that we have today, but it will have the functionality that it had in 1962.
It's a great point. Sorry. So what Vincent just said is that Nikon's design philosophy is that a lens you bought in 1962 should work on the cameras they make today. And I'll even go a step farther because, this is something I think is really great. So this battery has been in use by Nikon, at least this shape of battery, for, is it 20 years or something? So you don't get that from most other camera companies. They'll have a new camera that comes out and they change the battery size or shape depending on the needs. They updated the technology that's in here, but not the shape of the battery, so you could keep using it on future models. And they do that stuff really with the customer in mind. And they do other things they'll add more features to cameras with firmware updates that are free. So with, I'm not going to point fingers at other camera companies, but they'll sometimes, and I'm not talking about RED. Yeah. But like Sony or whatever, yeah. If you want a new feature in your camera, you have to wait till the next camera comes out, you have to buy a new camera. With these, sometimes they'll just say all right, there's a new firmware update, and there's 4 more features that now are going to be part of the camera that you already have. And they do that because they care about the customers, and it's a different philosophy than other camera companies have.
Some would say obsolete.
I was going to that additional lens flexibility here. I have a lot of EF lenses just from over the years. I have from 15 to 600. Those EF lenses actually work better on my Z mount now because I can use the Z mount Megadap adapter, which has a control ring and a function button. EF lenses don't have a control ring. They don't have a function better. So I could actually say they work even better than they historically did because they will continue to get better. But Z mount just means closest to the sensor, and RED used to have RF. I have from the head engineer at RED that we would have did Z mount, but it wasn't there. Z mount wasn't around at the time. That was the closest that we could get to the sensor at that time with the biggest image circle. So Z's here, then E mount, then R, then EF and GL and all the rest of them. So Z is the shallowest, meaning who doesn't like more lenses? I've yet to have someone that says I don't want more lenses.
Yeah.
How is the quality of the picture if you were to blow it up for the big screen, if you were like deciding to want to make movies with it?
Yeah. So you can do 6K, and most screens, most projectors are 4K. You know, they're coming out with more now, but that means not only is the quality good enough, but you can zoom in and you still have 4K's worth of information that looks great. And I've been very impressed with the quality, and especially 4K combined with, oh, we didn't even talk about the codecs. The codecs is like the most exciting part of the camera. So it's basically how much information you're able to store. And not everyone will need to use that. Like some people, you know, using H.264, H.265, like the compressed codec, that's might be more than what you need. Like there's plenty of reason why you don't need to get a ton of hard drives and just use H.264. If you're doing commercials, if you're doing other things that you know having that extra information is going to make a big difference, you can record in Nikon's RAW codec, which is NRAW, and it's great. I've been like loving it. It's relatively new. It's what, like a few months or something, a year, 2 years, sure. But it's yeah. But it's, I mean, it's like I've been really impressed with the color depth. I just worked with this colorist that for the De Beers project that he's like a big, you know, he's worked on all sorts of like commercials, and I usually can't afford him, but with De Beers I was like, let's get Narbe to do it. And he responded, he's like, what camera did you use for this? Like, this looks amazing. And I think codec has a huge part to do with that, is because you don't get, you know, with a compressed codec, you'll get banding. A lot of times you can notice it in the sky, like there's lines that go across the sky because this shade of blue is slightly different than this shade of blue, and the way that the codec work, it finds averages and it compresses them, and then you can notice that sometimes, especially when you're pushing it in the color grade. But with these raw codecs, you just get so much more information. It now has RED's color science inside of it. I was just learning a bit more about that. It's phenomenal. I couldn't tell you the difference between like RED's and Nikon's raw codec, but they're both like incredible, and you get so much information. You do need a lot of hard drive space, but for certain projects, it's definitely worth it.
Well,
yes?
You did, expanding on that a little bit, a previous graphic talked about using floating point in the audio.
Yeah.
Now, I'm familiar with float point in like video, right? Where something that normally like in the 90s would have gone to a video white. You could actually dial that down and start to see like clouds and sun and things, because even though you're blown out, the camera is still recording information of that. So is using float point in audio, like if an actress screams or something and it would clip, you actually get the information beyond that. And I'm not talking about using AI or something to interpolate the information. I mean actually having audio information beyond your clipping point. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the same thing it is in the audio, is that it's recording more than, it looks like it's clipped. That was what David's graph showed. It looks like the audio's clipped. It's at the top of what's showing you. But that's not all the information that's there. In fact, I just got like the new Zoom recorder that is 32-bit float, and you can't change the levels on it at all. You can only change how zoomed in you are on the waveform. So if somebody's talking quietly, you zoom in more and you can see the waveform. That way you know it's going. But if it's really loud, you just zoom out, but you don't change any other settings.
You don't need anybody to ride the level. She can scream as loud as she wants and you'll still have it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's amazing, yeah. It's really crazy. Yes?
Can you record 4K without cropping into the sensor?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. 4K, full sensor, even up to 60 frames a second is still full frame. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you talk about the memory cards, or like, does it have internal memory and all this?
There's no internal memory. It has a CF Express Type B. It also has a micro SD slot. Yep. I don't know if, are there micro SD cards that are fast enough to like? No. Okay. So it has CF Express Type B.
Only one slot, though.
It has just one slot. Yeah. I mean, the camera's really designed for, it's like very compact. So like,
No need for mini mags anymore.
yeah. But these things, I mean, I think you can get 2 terabyte cards. Like you can make out 4 terabytes. Yeah. cards are something that you don't want to skimp on. The first set of cards I got for the Z6 III were, they just like overheated fast and was stressful. Like you don't want to like, when there's a client around, be like, give me just a second, you know, like with the card. But these ones, like supposedly, that, and again, I don't have a ton of real world experience, but what people are saying and what all these reviews I've seen, they say is that the way that the camera is designed is that it has like a passive heat dissipation model. And so it doesn't seem like overheating is a huge issue. And yeah, so that's great.
So in a lab, we were able to test it for 2 hours for 6K 77 degrees.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you've tested this or whether it would be a question for you guys. Does that do direct recording to SSD? Okay, so it's just
To a like an external drive?
yeah. I mean, because like I've used Blackmagic system before that'll do. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. HDMI. Yeah. Yes.
How does this new camera compare to the older Reds that are out there, like Montrose?
Good question. So the question was, how do these cameras compare to older Reds that are out there? The biggest, one of the biggest things is the bit depth. So this is Red's codec, the R3D that's in this camera, and that's exciting. But it's like Nikon's version of Red's codec, and James, right?
Red 1, since Red 1, we've been shooting 16-bit RAW. So Red 1 is 16-bit RAW, and our brand new cameras are 16-bit RAW. So this is 14-bit, which is still incredibly thick data, thick negative, but Red 1 since inception have been 16.
And the way, it's James, right?
Yes.
The way that James explained it to me was, which is a good analogy, is the bit depth is the amount of crayons you have in your crayon box.
Or the amount of tonal values, right? So we have trillions at 16-bit. 14 would be about billions, and your 12-bit, 8-bit, 10-bit is millions. And this is where someone will say, hey, our eyes only see a few million. But guess what? I don't know what screen they're going to come out with next. I don't know what headset they're going to come out with next. I'm pretty sure at some point we said HD is the end-all, be-all until 4K came out. So just future-proofing, shoot the biggest, thickest negative you can. And that red code NE is about 160 megabytes for 6K. Guys and gals, look at your cameras. If they're doing 4K, it's right around that same size, but this is 6K raw. So that's the real benefit of this.
Yeah.
To your question, how does it compare? Those older Reds, they used to take, what, a couple minutes to boot up. They used to have to, you know, we all had our quirks with the older Reds. I think you just touched the button and that thing fired off, right? It's
really fast, yeah.
Completely different camera altogether, right? If you're buying a Red, you're buying a cinema camera system that will never sit in that footprint.
Look, you can use any camera to tell a good story. The story is the most important thing. The amount of features and specs that you get with this camera for this price point in this size is really remarkable. Like, and I know that I'm biased. I'm an ambassador, but I was so excited when I heard about this, this new camera, and because you're comparing it to. I don't really think you're comparing this to a RED because you're talking about something that's like a fifth, or it could be like a tenth the price of a RED camera. So I mean, for me, it's sort of a different market. But you're looking more like the FX3, the like other cameras that are similar, and either they're going to be double the price or not as impressive of specs. So like I really do think that like this camera with the specs that it has at the price point, at the size, is like it's an incredible combination. Cool. Anything else for now?
Just like a side question, do you have like other Nikon cameras here to show and to see?
Yep, that's a good place to stop at.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Come on.
Yeah. I forgot we were live streaming. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now I'm nervous.
Yeah. Although I don't.
Hey everyone, thank you. Everyone, thank you for coming. No, it's okay. Quiet on set. Thank you.
That actually works. Yeah.
It does with you guys. So thank you so much for coming. We have Eric Koretz here, who is the wonderful DP of Ozark, Lioness,
Ransom
Canyon,
Yeah.
and many other things, commercials, and he'll tell you more about that. And he's recently also worked with some of our new Profoto ecosystem. So we'll dig into that a little, and I'm just going to sort of ask him a few questions, and then at the end we'll also open up for questions from the audience.
Yeah.
So Eric, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And can you tell us how you started in the business?
Yeah. Well, I was in graphic design and photography before I became a cinematographer. Speak up. There's no microphone. All right, I will try. I speak softly, but I will try. So I was in graphic design and photography before I became a cinematographer. Before I even knew what a cinematographer was, really. And I was working on sets, and after I realized I hated graphic design, I was one of the other PAs at ASC magazine, and I was like, "What the fuck is that? They have magazines for this?" And I was like, and I started reading it, and I was like, "Oh wow, maybe this is something I could do." So, long story short, I got into AFI and got out and started doing documentaries. But my portfolio to AFI was a lot of still photography and weird shit I would shoot myself. And one of the things that I used to do with still photography is when I could afford it, I would always go for Profoto lights because that was the best of still photography. You old enough for that beer?
22.
All right, cool, good. So yeah, that's how I got into cinematography and into my first experience with Profoto lights, and that's a very short answer but
Yeah.
you know.
And then, so you've been a cinematographer for how long?
Well, I graduated AFI in before 2010, I'll say. As soon as I got out, I was doing documentaries, and then I got into that was the birth of the previous speaker was mentioned the 5D, and that's really what sort of started it for me, using the 5D on commercials, and I started doing a ton of commercials. And then I got into films, and then I got into TV. So it's sort of all symbiotic.
So starting with the documentaries, how much lighting do you actually use on documentaries? Mostly for the interviews, or?
I mean, for me, I treated it like it was a movie, so I would use as many lights as possible. Yeah, I mean, it was always about how could I make the image evocative? How could I make it cinematic, which is, for better or worse term? How could I take it out of that normal shit that you used to really see in documentaries? Now everything is so heightened, but I wanted it to feel heightened. I did a documentary called Dragon Slayer that won a bunch of awards, and that sort of got me into commercials. But I was always pushing light in documentaries to see how I could really heighten the moment.
And how was the jump was it easy going from documentaries to narrative and commercials?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never actually, I liked doing documentaries, but I never really, that wasn't my goal. So I went to school for narrative, so it was an easy jump.
You and I earlier were talking about some of your experience on Ozark, and can you tell everybody a little about that?
Yeah, who's seen Ozark? There's a few of you. Cool, good. So Ozark is a very dark show, in terms of, it's an understatement. We do that by really sculpting the light and using, lights are incredibly important, but how you sculpt the light with the grip show, that's what really makes the look of the show. So We would every day we would have at least 2 lulls or pettibones, which are these condor type things that, for those that don't know, that have 20 by or 30 by negative, and that way you really sock in the environment. You can shoot it any time of day, and then you bring in the light, the key light. You can bring in any key light when you're doing it that way, and really shape the moment. So one thing we used to do was we'd use 360s a lot, even outdoors, because we could get it up close. In moments we would really just it would be like, okay, we don't have any light. We took everything out. So you got to see the actors at a certain point. And so we bring 360s out close, and I always felt like there wasn't enough output from them. They're big and unwieldy. We still use them a lot to this day, but like, I always wish I could get more out of it. And so when I saw these, I was excited because it's half the weight of the 360.
Yeah, half the weight of the 360.
And infinitely more output. I don't know the actual number of output.
Yeah, I think it's like 1,500 watts for the 360, and then this is 2,000 watts.
Okay, so it's significantly more output, and I was excited because I would always, on Ozark we would have 360 to the side as a key, and then I'd want to diffuse it, and I couldn't diffuse it too much or too heavy because it would take too much of the light away. So it ended up being a little bit harsher than I wanted it to be, which works for the show. But like, I wanted that output and that power. So I was excited when I first saw these because it's really about output. And once you have enough output, you can really shape the light and diffuse the light to how you want it to be.
Which brings me to, you recently used these lights on a commercial. Can you tell them about that?
Yeah, so I used on an NHL commercial. And it was in a big conference hall, and this one was it's not out yet, so I can't show the commercial. But it was a guest speaker, kind of like this, except a big room, and NHL players are asking questions. So we use 3 of these, and then we actually put the diffusion on the snap bag, so that we could sort of shape it, a little bit of diffusion in the front, and then we would put 8 bys or 12 bys in front, and that would be our main key. And it was perfect for the shoot. I think I have a couple. Is this playing up there?
Yeah.
That's the wrong one. Also the wrong one. So you can just get an idea of the space. And so we would also use it in conjunction with other lights, like we'd have a hard LED that coming across to kind of either be the back edge or come across as a slash on the body. This case the diffusion's down, but we had it up a bunch. I think this one might have a better. Yeah, so you can see how big the space was. And we just used it it felt like a daylight source coming through. Just nice big key, and it was really nice.
Yeah, and with this light, it's 120-degree angle, and the LEDs are really close together, so they don't have any shadow. And so you're able to use it even without diffusion.
Yeah.
So you can make those choices on the spot. Do I need it? Do I not? Let's see what it looks. And it's really, everything's very ergonomic, fast. And you can see it's just on a regular combo stand, so it's not moving a 360.
Yeah, you don't need 7 guys to lift it up.
It's got, and there it's like a snap bag. We worked with DOP Choice to make a snap bag, which I have out at the booth, which I can show you afterwards.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is all their accessories. I don't know how many of you were with still photos before, but like they're all amazing quality. So, and one thing I was doing when I was playing around with the lights before the other lights, they have a 1600D, which is like a very high-powered daylight source. There's no ballast, so it's just that one thing, and it's I was using a beauty dish. I've never used a beauty dish before in video, in film world. So that was a nice thing to be able to kind of play with and use, especially in a commercial world. It's nice. And that's also with the 1600. We actually used that in that same scenario. I don't know if this is the right one. Where we just needed a little bit more top light, and literally all I had that 1600D and not even on full output, and it gave us enough top light to kind of like play with it. Do you have that here, or is that not? It's out.
Yeah,
it's outside. So plenty of those you can play around with.
So when we talk about light shaping, you know, what's when you look at a set, obviously you're on a variety of different sets, and they have to have different feels, from Ozark to, you know, to NHL and this. Like, what's your overall? How do you approach it?
Well, it depends on the project, but it's really about how do you shape the light to evoke whatever the story is trying to tell. I'm not ever just trying to light for beauty, unless it's a commercial and it's calling for that. It's always how do you shape the light to tell that specific part of the story? Because to me, the light is a character just as much as anything else is. I never want to just be like, okay, we're just going to make these actors look beautiful. Although Rancid Canyon had some of that, or a lot of that actually, if we're going to be honest. But you know, we really wanted to tell a story. I hate, you know, when I'm watching something and the light isn't symbiotic with what the story is trying to tell. But it requires everyone working together to do that, from the director to the production to, you know, to really enforce that. And I will say, actually, with Ozark, talking about production, you have to, especially on a TV show where you're really trying to have a very distinct look, getting production on board early on is really important, because most productions won't give you 2 Pettibones, 2 Lowells for the show every day. Like, you have to sort of space that out according to budget. But on Ozark, it was like the look was incredibly important. So we built that in beforehand so that we knew we could shape the light, which is hard to do. A lot of producers don't see that, and it's up to you as a DP to really convince them, to show them how it could save your day. For example, on Ozark, because we had these negative sources, we could shoot pretty much any time of the day. We would plan it out, and we want to shoot, you know, the right time of day. But a lot of times it's not possible, especially in a TV show, even one that's made for the look. So getting everyone on board early to figure that out is important. Yeah.
Can I ask how many days per episode it was?
On Ozark?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't actually, it was less than 20. I think it was about 15, but I actually don't quite remember.
Was it chronological, or did they bounce around the season?
Sorry, was
like,
what?
So even though it's an episode, were they shooting the whole season at once?
Oh, yeah, it was chronological.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was chronological.
we're shooting in blocks.
Yeah, okay.
But I will say, because it rained so fucking much in Atlanta, we would, you know, we'd be like, okay, I guess that's a half day today, and we'll finish this tomorrow. So the production was good for like making it up a little bit later on. Yeah.
What about power requirements? If you're in a residential building,
Yeah.
typically each circuit, you don't want to draw more than about 15 amps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that?
Yes,
I think it is,
yes,
right?
Yeah, this plugs into any 15 amp. It's 97% efficient. And when the production model comes out, there's still a demo unit. It'll have a thicker gauge in Edison, and it'll get the full 2,000 watts from the 15 amp.
Yeah, but that's one thing I love about all these LEDs that are coming out now, is that a lot of them are so energy efficient that you don't have to have the big generator to do things, and that's amazing. Like, you know, the 1600 as well. I think you can plug it into a wall.
Yeah, all of Profoto's ecosystem are ballast free, and you can plug them all into a wall.
Yeah.
And you can use Instagrade or EcoFlow. What's great about that, and I've been learning, and I worked with another company into batteries, that now you don't have to, let's say you want to put it on a condor and just put a battery, you can now drive it around this, I don't like it there. You don't have to have all the wires coming and all the things. So like, things are really changing, especially with the LED lights, the ability to use them anywhere, and just throw them in a car or throw them, and without the ballast. They're not. And again, look, this is not heavy comparatively, especially to the output.
Yeah.
So it's making things faster.
Yeah, and I love, no matter what my budget is, I like having the attitude of how, not necessarily run and gun I could be, but how can I make things as pared down and as simple as possible, and not necessarily use the big guns when we have to, like being able to use energy efficient lights, and really, do something that any production could really do, on a smaller scale, of course, but like, putting it in a car, getting one of the EcoFlow battery and plugging it into that. I love to be able to do that. And you never know when that's going to help you. I mean, you might have to throw one of these, you light up a building 15 blocks away. You can just throw this up, put a little battery on it, and light up the building. Actually, light up multiple buildings. I think on One Battle After Another, I think they used a lot of efficient LEDs to do night shoots. And it wasn't, not necessarily big condors. They just put them on buildings and light up buildings. So.
So what was your favorite scene that you've ever shot?
Oh man, let's see.
That you're like, you know what, this was the coolest thing I've ever done or come up with and actually executed.
I haven't even thought about that. I'd say the last day of Ozark because it was really hard. And we were supposed to shoot. It was a shot that was coming over. I won't spoil it because someone dies, and it's a shot that everyone dies in Ozark, but this person was a main character. And we were overhead with a crane and flipping around, and it was actually one of the hardest things I had to do too because we just couldn't get it right. We couldn't flip it. And it took, we're supposed to be done by midnight. It was the very last day of shooting, and I had a flight out at 7 a.m., and we didn't finish till 5 a.m. So that was my favorite because we finished and I could make my flight.
That's
No, but it was also, I like the shot. It was really like, if you watch it and you know what I'm talking about in the scene, it's very chilling when it kind of, I won't say who died, but it was nice.
Okay, and on the reverse of that, what's the worst thing?
I cannot tell you that in public.
one story that something, or maybe something went wrong terribly and you had to solve.
Oh man. God, there's so many of those. I feel like there's more worse stories than
production.
Than yeah. It's always something like that.
It's always something.
I'll add another best one for Lioness. We shot Morocco for Texas because I guess Morocco looks like Texas, which it actually did. And it took us, it was a 4-week prep to do one scene where we had a truck come in and it was getting pulled by pulleys and 3 cars smash into it and blows up. And then there's a gunfight and all that. That was all in one day. And the preparation for that was a lot of fun, but it was also working with the special effects to figure out like math as to how fast that truck had to go to actually make it look good on camera, to hit the cars at the right speed. And, it involved, normally that's not something I'm pulled into, but I had to speak up because the truck wasn't going fast enough to actually look cool. They're like, oh, can't you just speed it up on camera? I'm like, no, that's not how it works. So, and we figured it out and it looked really cool. And I like those sort of problem-solving things when we're shooting. I will add too that putting these up on Condors, one thing with Arri 360, which I always hated, it couldn't go low enough. So on Ozark, where we're shooting wide open 1.2, 1.4, and then 2500 ISO or 3200 ISO, 0.5 on an Arri 360 was too much fucking light, and we'd have it on a Condor. So I would always tell my gaffer, well, can we bring it down more? And be like, no, it doesn't go down anymore. I'm like, well, can we throw diffusion on it? Well, no, it's up on the Condor already, because none of us thought it would be not enough light. So we had to go with it. And I mean, no one else could tell that I was like, but to me, it was like, she's too bright. She died too in the show. So yeah, that for Condor work or for up high work or any, I mean, this is going to be fantastic. So.
And we also talked about the ecosystem that, obviously the right tool for the right job is not as much as I want it all to be Profoto. There,
Right. Yeah.
There's certain things. So do you want to kind of dig into
Yeah,
that?
I mean, just for the NHL spot, for example, we had a hard source LED, which did a different job, obviously, than this. We used it to slash across the talent, or we used it as a back edge in a way that a soft panel couldn't do. And they work both from the same DMX system, and they work perfectly together. And the colors were, we were matching to a sort of a daylight look, and it looked great. So I think that there's pantheon of LEDs right now. There's so many great lights, and this being one of them, and the other ones as well. It's great that that you're not going to have a problem matching this with, let's say, aperture or Nanlux or whatever you're going to do. The quality will be great on this one. That's what you can be assured of. But it's great how there's never one set where you're like, I'm only using this kind of light. Maybe there is, I don't know, but not here, like in other environments maybe. So it's great to be able to sort of mix and match those things.
And if you could tell anybody either how to start in the business or how to maintain in the business like you have, what kind of advice might you have for people?
I don't know. Is anybody working right now? You have a job? All right, good. Oh, you're what?
I'm a cinematographer.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, I'm working on a project right now. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a hard time, like right now. I know a lot of really good people that aren't working, so I'd say like my advice would just be to keep at it because, times are changing. Yeah.
So hard times in LA because of they're doing a lot of production overseas.
Sorry, repeat that.
Hard time in Los Angeles.
Yes, I think.
Like I was got an email today, and they're doing shows in London now.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And when did that start happening?
Well, it started really. It's London's been consistent, but it picked up once Marvel left Atlanta, and they brought all their stuff to London. But
And you spoke earlier about Morocco, Texas.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
making Morocco look like Texas.
Yeah, yeah.
Not making Texas look like Morocco.
Exactly.
Which is
Yeah.
kind of upside down.
Yeah. Who would think? We started out from Baltimore. No one knew we were going to Morocco at any point. So, but it's hard to say. I don't think anyone really has the answer to it. I think they're making less right now for whatever reason. Things are being made in other overseas, not necessarily even. It used to be Atlanta, New Mexico here for our U.S. stuff, but now not much is being made in either of those cities. It's starting to pick up.
Well, they're also talking about the film incentives are starting to kick
helping,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's about 22 shows that should be starting up again.
Yeah.
And so
it's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of, there are some things happening that are coming back certainly to Los Angeles.
But I think, yeah.
Years ago, I met a guy. He worked in London.
Yeah.
Loved it, but his visa, he didn't give me no work, so his visa, he had to come back to the States.
Yeah.
Now since then, equipment has been getting a lot lighter.
Yeah.
Okay, so whereas back in the day in London, when it got cold, we were picking up some heavy equipment. Okay, but now if you go to London and shoot, the equipment is real light.
Yeah.
Even if you're out in the cold.
Sure.
So does that have any effect of why they're shooting more in London or any place else where it's cold at? Because the equipment is easier to handle than it was when it was heavy.
I don't think so. I think it's money. I think it's crew for one part. Their studios are trying to figure out how to not pay us as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then, but I think it's also, there's so much equipment now that things are more accessible. So it used to be the best equipment was here, and then it started farming out to the other places. But now everyone has the same things. So I don't think I think it's equal. It's equal everywhere now in terms of what you can get. But
yeah, everything's now about money, and there's I think 1.2 billion that was incentivized in England. So that's why right now they are too busy and shipping over equipment that is not working here.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Pounds, yeah. Pounds.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. Does anyone else have any? Yes, sir.
Fantastic work on Lioness, one of my favorites.
Thank you. Thank you.
That look and the look of Ozark, completely different looks.
Yeah.
But really, it's fantastic work. So my question is, I got two questions actually. How do you like to work and communicate with your gaffer?
Yeah.
You know, in TV shows, I don't know how often they change per episode. I think they stay the same, different directors.
Yeah.
So
Gaffer's the same through
Okay.
through the season. Yeah.
So then, how do you like to talk to them as far as getting the look?
Right.
Do you talk in stuff? Do you talk technical? Do you talk the look
Yeah.
itself?
Great question. Yeah.
And then the second question would be: do you have a go-to soft look? Because the actors look amazing whether they're in the critical situation room,
Sure.
or they're outside in Morocco.
Right. Talking about for a key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. How do you like to diffuse? How do you like to work with?
Sure.
Those two.
Great question. The first question: how do I? So I start off the season with building a lookbook with the director, and then we build through examples exactly how we want it to feel and look through that. And so we build that, and then that's passed on to the crew. And then for me, when I'm working with gaffer, key grip, or operators, ACs, I really want them to be involved as much as possible creatively. I don't like dictating, okay, use this light, use this diffusion, I like to be a collaboration, because that's why everyone's doing this, and you get best work out of people doing it that way. So I'll say, this is the feeling I want. I might say, hey, put this light over there and do this, but usually it's like, this is the feeling. I'm thinking about these tools. What do you think? And it's really just a discussion, unless we're moving really fast and we're behind, and then I'm like, put that there, which happens a lot. But I've been fortunate to work with some incredible gaffers and crew. So yeah, go ahead.
Where do you see the trend of lighting going? Whether it's technique, style, or certain gears, whether it's inside, outside, whether how different it is from like movies to TVs, high,
Sure.
low budget?
Well, I'll answer your second question and combine it with that one. So I don't have a definitive way I like to light, but I use WAG flags a lot, because you can bring that diffusion. For those that don't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, but the WAG flag is just a post or with a diffusion on it, different quality. So I like to bring that up, as close as possible. The actor, I love soft light. I like mixing soft and hard light. So I like it to be soft and skin, especially with female talent. And then, I've had instances where, actors will be like, okay, bring that camera up. We don't want to be like too low, Yeah, that happens. So, you want them to feel like they're, as incredible looking as possible while still telling the story. You know what I mean? A lot of diffusions. But then again, if I'm doing something with Linus, for example, which is 3 to 6 cameras at once, where you can't be very specific with it, I'll have lights up high with soft boxes, a lot of panels with diffusion, and then maybe something coming through the window. I'll hide the big source wherever I can, because I love coming through windows and having that light feel like it's motivated. And then I'll hide the different lights around. So Ransom Canyon was also 3 cameras all at the same time, for the most part. Sometimes 5 if we're doing action, but Lioness was like nuts. Action 3 to 6.
You got different skin tones in the same room.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's something you have to work with. Yeah. Sometimes I just close my eyes and hope it works. And then where it's going, well, I certainly think more power from LEDs, that you'll be able to, the more power the better, because you can diffuse it more and you can shape it more. So I'm always looking for that. But and accessibility, because everything is coming down in price and quality is going up. So to have your powerful soft panels, to have your powerful Fresnels or single cob lighting, that's all really important. And I like being versatile with it. So a lot of these lights, like Profoto example, with all their different diffusions or their different, I like to be able to sometimes it's like, okay, this one light can do 7 different things. Sometimes it's this one light can do one thing really great. So it's really just versatility, and I think there's a lot of that out there. But I think it's great that the same productions that are using, LEDs that are for almost everything you can do that with a big production, or you can do that with a little production. They're all using the same lights. And that's pretty cool because it didn't used to be that way. It used to be like, you'd have to have your 18Ks and your expensive lights, and now it's so much cheaper and looks better, I think. Does that answer it?
Yeah, yeah.
You had another question.
Especially like lighting stuff. You also touched up on that, which is like a lot of which is what I like. A lot of motivated lighting from the outside, but then supplement with softer source.
Yeah.
Inside and
Yeah.
being flexible, especially with LED panel being so much smaller, so much easier to hide.
Yeah.
Just diffusing and controlling shaping.
Yeah, it's all about controlling and shaping, like what you just said. Like it's like if I can control it and shape it exactly how I want to, I can tell the story with it.
And all with a small footprint.
Exactly. Yeah. Or big if you want it to be a big footprint. Like sometimes going big, like for this commercial that I just showed some clips on, where we have the space to do a bigger source. But usually for narrative, you're not doing that as much. Usually it's hidden or coming through a window, or that's right.
Stage, the set. Like I like to give the set to the actors and directors as much as I can.
Yes. Yeah. Although I like to be very specific with my shots. So like, I don't like being like, okay, actor, go wherever you want. It's cool with me. In fact, the problem is a lot of actors these days don't know how to hit their marks. So it happens anyways. I'm sure some of you experience that. I work with the showrunner and say, hey, can you tell them how to hit their marks?
Actually, something related. Do you also adjust based on what camera you're using, whether it's an RA or a Venice or 16mm, 35mm?
Yeah.
With your lighting, do you still go tungsten, or do you go to something different depending on what you're shooting on camera, or even like whether it's spherical or anamorphic?
Yeah. So usually I'm doing tungsten on stage if they don't want to spring for LEDs or something else because tungsten's so cheap. But I try and convince them. Now I think I could convince them not to do that because the power output is so much better, and lights are less expensive now for the powerful LEDs. But on previous stuff, be like, okay, well, we got a 20K, up on truss to come through the window. I hate that. I prefer not to do that. I know a lot of people still love tungsten light, but I would go all LED if I could get away with it.
You don't adjust like your types of LED based on like camera or format?
No, unless not really. I mean, I know with the Venice, I can go the dual ISO, so I know I don't need as much light sometimes. So I might plan what lights I get accordingly. But no, I don't change it based off of the light. Mm-hmm.
Do you change the cameras you use depending on the
project?
Yeah, the project.
Yes. I own a Venice, so I use that a lot. But I also, on Linus, we use the Alexa 35s and also the LFs. So I'm agnostic, although I prefer in a TV environment, I prefer the Venice because it's a faster production, with the one-stop NDs and the dual ISO. I find it saves a lot of time. And
how much testing of the cameras and lenses do you do?
As much as they'll give me, which is not enough usually. It's usually you're getting the camera package kind of late, and they don't budget in the testing as much as I would like. So. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, filter-wise, I'm not I don't use heavy diffusions. I like it to be subtle, unless for some reason the look is that. But I like heightened realism. So like, or I like it to pop, but I want it to feel grounded in some way. So usually when you're using heavier diffusions and filters, it kind of negates that, unless the look calls for something crazy. What about them? I'm always changing lenses. Yeah. But, you know, per project, usually there's a budget issue and you have like sets. Yeah, so usually I'm using the same set of lenses for a show because that's how the look is defined, unless there's something like, let's say, hey, we want this to feel like he's, you know, tripping on acid, and then, you know, I might do something else. Happens more than you think, but like, so you'll, you know, I might change it up for that, and then bring in something specialty for that scene. But there's always budgets to consider, so you know, no one wants to pay anything for for anything.
What were the lenses on
Lioness were the K35s, a bunch of zooms, and we had, I think, do we have FDs? I think we had FDs as well. Yeah.
What's your pre-production like when it comes to, let's say, a film versus television? Like,
Yeah.
how do you go through about it? Does it change a lot, or do you try to be consistent, try to hit these certain things for each type of project, or does it change a lot depending on what the project is?
I find, I mean, it's definitely, it changes more based off of budget. So the lower budget, the less prep you usually have. So for me, the process is the same, trying to figure out the look and getting on page with the same director to figure out what that is. But, you know, usually on a lower budget film, under 20 million, under 10 million, you're have very little time for prep unless somehow that's miraculously built into it. And TV generally has more prep. Although I've done multiple TV shows where I've had 1-2 days of prep before I had to start shooting because I had to start early or something. Well, craziness. Yeah. So.
Do you sometimes shoot multiple episodes with different directors, or is it usually
multiple episodes?
Like you'll do like 3 episodes in a row, and then the directors will change, or will they?
Yeah, no, it changes. So it goes in blocks. So we'll do, for a TV show, we'll do, you know, let's say, for example, the first and second episode are shot together in a block, almost always. And then that director will go away, I'll prep, and then I'll do the next block. I'll do, the other DP will do another block, and then I'll do a block with a new director.
And what's that like going? And does that change? I mean, the look you established already.
As DP, it's our job to sort of keep that look consistent, but there's a lot of times where directors don't care, and but most of the time they do, and they're always really great directors involved with these shows. So it's just a matter of how far. It's always a discussion, but you want it to be a consistent look.
Voice.
Yeah. Like you want the director to have his own voice, her own voice, but it also needs to be symbiotic with the rest of the show. So it's our job to kind of balance that and say when we're going too far in the wrong direction, which is hard to do because a lot of directors are very strong in their voice, as they should be, because that's why they're there. So it's finding that balance.
We only have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. We're pretty much out of time. I know. Were you gonna? Somebody was gonna say something. Is it you? I just heard.
No, I have one question.
Okay, great.
What zooms do you use? Which
Zooms?
Zooms do you use?
You know, it's different for.
Which ones do you find most efficient, if there is such a thing?
I try not to use zooms, but when I do use zooms, it's usually for either the length, like where I have to do something extreme. Like for example, in Lioness, when we're doing an action scene, some of the cameras had to be zooms to kind of get different frames. So whether if it's handheld, it's the short zooms, longer zooms. There's if it can park it and kind of find something. So I'm brand agnostic when it comes to zooms. It's really just about the focal length and the stop, and if it works for the show.
Okay.
But I prefer the the aperture of primes because you can really, to me, that's more sculpting in some ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you ever use Zeiss Otises on your shoots.
I have not. Oh, yeah. You like them?
Huh?
Do you like them?
Yeah, I like the clinical sharpness of them.
Nice.
You can get them for a lot cheaper than like the Zeiss Cinema lenses,
Right.
and they're made in the same place as those Zeiss Cinema.
Amazing.
But they're photography lenses, so
Right.
you just focus it yourself.
I mean, there's lots of great. I mean, this on Ozark we used Leica R lenses that were rehoused for cinema. So like, there's so many great lenses out there, especially older stuff, and then this newer stuff that you can. I mean, possibilities are endless right now. It's pretty amazing. It's just about how you shape the look.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We have to. We're getting flagged to stop. Thank you, Eric.
Don't flag us.
And then if you want to come out, we're gonna.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are presenting on, well, Lucas. Lucas has been
you can take over.
an OG for a long, long time. He's been through the trenches with our brand, which was originally G Technology, transitioned over to SanDisk Professional, and we have a special announcement that you will notice in around January timeframe. We are transitioning back to the G brand. So we want to bring it home, talking with Lucas, who has been with us forever, the OGG. So I will turn it over to him.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
I've got my.
Well, then,
you can take that.
I will take this back. I don't even know if.
All right. Well, thanks you guys for coming. A little history. I've worked with G Technology and SanDisk for going on 20 years now, and we're going to kind of show you. I'm originally a photographer and cinematographer, and I'm going to show you what I do now, basically. And I've taken a role with Red Bull, and I'm a senior editor with them now. And these are the kind of things I produce for them. I shoot and edit. And I'm going to kind of walk you through my journey as a photographer initially, which I did for about 20 years before starting to shoot motion, doing a little bit of directing, and then moving on to now editing a lot and shooting cinematography is kind of an adjunct thing when it's specific for the projects that I'm working on. This is my son Landon, and he is now 16 years old. And this is all the stuff that I used to carry. I used to carry all kinds of lenses, big lights, mostly adventure photography. But I started out shooting sports in college and worked for a newspaper, started working for Sports Illustrated, shooting still images, Tour California, a lot of cycling stuff over the years, Kentucky Derby. And, you know, just always looking to make unique, different images. So this image I spent all day basically trying to figure out with a 600 millimeter lens, what the shutter speed, where the faces of the horse or their heads would be sharp and their hooves would be moving. So it was 1/60th of a second. And it took me about 500 images to finally figure that out. But through that process, you know, I've always tried to make something different. And, you know, being a visual person, it's all about trying to separate yourself from the pack. So I think hopefully everybody has something they can take away from this. We're going to talk a little bit about workflow. Always looking for new angles, using lights. That last presentation was great. The DP from Ozark, amazing work. And really trying to like separate yourself instead of just walking out with a camera and making an image, lighting it, location scouting, finding things that are interesting, finding different angles, shooting at f/16 so you get the starburst with a fisheye lens, lighting things a little bit. I think Joe McNally said it best. He said, if you want to make something interesting, don't light the whole thing. So only light part of it. So I've used light a lot. This is actually when the D4 came out and you could actually shoot after the sun went down, which was, everybody was like digital. This is during that area when everybody's like, film will always be king. Digital is always junk. And I was like, they're like, why would you want to shoot ISO 6400 at, you know, 1/2500th of a second? I'm like, because I can now shoot this image, which I would not have been able to do on film previous to this. Colorado, grew up in Colorado. Always looking for pops of color. This is actually naturally occurring soap bubbles, and this was actually after the shoot. We were shooting these big waterfalls, and I was just standing on the bridge, and he was floating underneath me, and it is one of the things which constantly, whether I'm shooting a motion image or a still image, I always start with the background first and work forward. Find my background and either place the action into it or wait for it to happen. Shot a lot of kayaking. I grew up in Colorado, went to school at Boulder, moved to Jackson Hole, and a buddy of mine was an extreme kayaker, and I kind of fell in with these guys who were doing some of the craziest stuff in the world. This is the third largest waterfall ever run. This is Big Banana Falls in Mexico. Agua Azul. It's called Lower Tomata. So I like to do a lot of what I call little person, big landscape, where the person's small, and it's almost like a landscape image, and you're like, oh, there's actually a person there. Washington.
Mexico, Oregon. This is the largest, or until recently, the largest waterfall at 189 feet. This is Palouse Falls in Washington State. Little lava fall. These guys decided they wanted to kayak out there. They were worried as they're coming back that their boats were going to melt because the water was almost boiling, and these basically you'll see the steam, but these rocks were exploding once they hit the water. So it was really kind of a contact sport. I started out my journey in a sports photography sense was I shot a lot of stuff for Red Bull, and they really love these sequences. This is one of their mandates. So basically, I would basically frame this how I wanted it, and he, basically shoot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25 frames, and then basically composite these frames and show exactly where they went. But this is one of the things that Red Bull mandated when we were shooting stills was do these things. So always looking for techniques and things, again, to separate yourself from the competition. Getting in the water, shoot a lot of surfing. I lived in California for about 14 years. I'm in Colorado again. Big Sur is one of my favorite places. Just going out before, the sun comes up, the blue hour, the golden hour. Shot a lot of stuff at Jaws. This is Mavericks. Jaws again. And again, always waiting for those opportune moments. So this image, I'm at, this is Pipeline on the North Shore in Hawaii. And I'm there, and there's probably 65 photographers standing with me. We're all shooting, we're on Nikon, we're on Canon, everybody, or Sony, everybody's shooting, 60 frames a second. We all have identical pictures. They're sharp. We're all standing shoulder to shoulder. And a buddy of mine is a helicopter training pilot. And I said, hey, can you give me the student rate? I'd like to go up. And he said, yeah, we can do that. But the helicopter needs to go in for service, and we're about 3 hours away from the service. And it's a Robinson 44, which at 20,000 hours, basically, the rotor needs to be completely replaced because it basically shears. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, are we good? He's like, yeah. So he came up and we shot for about 30 minutes, and the sun went down and was able to make something really different from everybody else. So again, the takeaway from that is that we always don't have a helicopter budget, but always trying to think of somewhere else to shoot so you're not standing next to the same guy, the guy next to you who's getting the exact same shot. This guy did not have a good day. This is at Jaws. But yeah, this is in my backyard in Rio Grande, which is near San Luis Obispo. Just always looking for locations, the dunes out there. Jaws again. That's Aaron Gold. That was in the Guinness Book of World Records. That was the largest wave paddled into ever at Jaws. Jaws again. Ian Walsh, Red Bull athlete. Done a lot of work with him over the years. Shane Dorian. Kai Linney. Filters. Long exposures. 15 seconds. Iceland. Iceland, yep. We brought our own surfers. This is actually strobed. This is when Hypersync first came out, and we were kind of pushing the bleeding edge of using strobes at high shutter speeds. Big Sur. Mavericks. Brazil. So a little, and I'm not sure, does anybody surf here? Surfing's a very I don't know what you call it, but they don't want to share waves. If it's locals only kind of situation, and they really don't like photographers because photographers post them on Instagram, and all of a sudden, like all these other people start showing up to their home break. So I'm in Brazil, like this is in Rio, and I'm shooting this, and this guy sees me with the camera, and he gets this wave, and he starts running straight at me, and I'm like, I'm gonna get beat. And I don't speak any Brazilian Portuguese. And he finally is through like language, basically hand signs. He's like, I just want the picture. So he gets a Sharpie, and I write my email address on his arm. And I think he liked the pictures. I sent it to him. And I think he was trying to say this is the best wave I've ever gotten, but so I didn't get beaten, which was great. Always looking for those kind of like moments where it's not just about the surfer, it's about the place, telling the story. Milky Way up in Big Sur. Little trick. I use white balance within the camera. I use filters as well, but if you go to 10,000 Kelvin in your camera, basically, that will be the warmest your camera can be. So a pretty good sunset all of a sudden turns into a really good sunset. So this is at 10,000 Kelvin. Back in Iceland, using foreground elements to kind of bring your eyes into the action. Iceland again, framing things. Iceland. Love shooting portraits. Sculpting light. Lighting only what I want you to see, not what I don't want you to look at. A lot of times I'm trying to hide things in an otherwise perfect frame. There's a trash can, or there's a rope or a railing or something like that. So only lighting one thing, drawing the attention, it's a photographer, a cinematographer. Our job is to draw your attention to what we want to show you and keep things that are distracting away from your eyes. So always looking to do that with light. This is with steel wool. They're standing in tide pools. Slow shutter speed. This Disney concert hall. Chauncey Billups before he went to prison. Yeah. This is shooting professional athletes is very, very, especially NBA, NFL, etc. You literally have 5 minutes. They'll be like, you have 5 minutes. Usually it's not even 5 minutes because they're always late. So assistant, we set up this whole thing and I actually showed him this picture and he's like, oh, cool. And he ended up saying for like a half hour. And then he's like, can I get a picture, for my wall? And I was like, all right, cool. But, it's one of those things, working with people, being a good person, paying it forward. Iceland. Softbox just out of the camera. So people ask me, what's your lighting style? And it's typically one soft light source, like a softbox, like could be like this, but I like to control a little more like this. And it is literally just out of frame, as close as possible to her. The light is the softest there because it's relative to the distance. It's a large light source. So you see how it kind of wraps around her face. And people go, well, how do you keep the softbox out? The easiest way to do that is step back and zoom in, because you're basically narrowing the angle of view for your lens. So this softbox is literally just out of frame right here. Yeah, so this is a, so the white balance is tungsten. So it's blue, everything that is natural light turns blue. We're also in the shade. And then I've put a full CTO and a half CTO on the strobe. So everything that lights her is warm. Everything that doesn't light her turns blue. Portraits, lots of lights. Iceland again. Shot a lot of travel stuff over the years. This is Venice. Going out when the light's nice. City of Arts and Sciences in Valencia, Spain. Machu Picchu. The airport in Chicago. Always get stuck there. Molokai. This is from a helicopter. I love shooting out of helicopters. Sydney. Really going out when the light is good. And that's, early in the morning and late in the evening. And looking for those moments. This is in Dubai. Dubai again. I did a lot of panos over the years. This is 100 images stitched together. Long exposure. Excuse me. And I have an automated head that helps me stitch all these together. But you can do it by hand as well. It just takes a little time and a little, perseverance to line these up. And typically, if you want to shoot these panos, you want to overlap about 30% so that you have something, because if you're using, say, Photoshop to line everything up, it needs something of reference, something sharp, usually a horizontal and a vertical axis of some sort, to line these things up so that then it'll line it up and make everything look good. One of the first things I do before any shoot, whether it's a motion shoot or a still shoot, is I figure out how many cards I'm going to need, how many hard drives I'm going to need, because we've all been there. You get out there and all of a sudden you're like deleting a clip, deleting an image. So if I'm shooting time lapses, I'll use Photopills, which their website is free. You can go out and say, I'm going to shoot a time lapse. How many gigs is it going to be? If I'm shooting a motion project, I'll use this AJA calculator basically to tell me how much, if I'm going to shoot 50 minutes of footage, how much data, how many hard drives I'm going to need, how many cards I'm going to need for all that storage. Photopills also has a very cool thing if you're into time lapses. It has these interval tables for, everything from the sun moving, stars, shadows moving across the thing, and it's great. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's something very cool. Night photography, they used to go the MPF rule, which would be, the 500 rule, which would mean basically how long you could go while the stars were sharp. But the sensors have gotten so good that now they use an MPF rule, which you'll see is about less than half as much time for exposure before they start to blur. So if you want really pinhole stars, you want to do that and figure out what that is. As I said, I've started off in photography, and then basically photography kind of propelled me into being interested in shooting some motion. And this is a project that I shot some of, but I edited this project for Lindsey Vonn, who's an Olympian who's going back to the Olympics. This is her 20th year anniversary with Red Bull, so we put this together for her.
When my grandpa taught me to go fast, he didn't mean fast for a girl. Fast never asked if I was a woman. It asked for courage. I followed in his tracks and all the grades that had come before. Fast defines me.
Lindsey Vonn, the greatest female skier of all time.
Going fast has a way of carving its own path.
30 parts a month. Working, let's go. 3, 2.
Oh no, she is down! Is this Vaughn's last competition? I can't tell you how many times people told me that I wouldn't come back, I can't come back. I had 2 ACL surgeries, MCL, meniscus, I have a plate and 19 screws in my arm. People said it was impossible. You have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to?
Lindsey Vonn is on a mission.
That's Lindsey. I think she will be in the Olympics in, I guess it's 90 days away, is from yesterday. Winter Olympics, yeah, she's a skier. So I'm going to go through and talk about my field workflow. These, I've always used SanDisk cards in my workflow. If we go out and we spend a lot of money on a camera, we spend a lot of money to get somewhere, and if you don't trust, what you're putting those in, it's like buying a Maserati and going out and buying gas from a guy with a wheelbarrow, figuring it's going to work, right? So, different capacities. The main thing, though, with these cards these days is figuring out if these cards are going to work with your camera, especially in this cinema mode. Sustained write speeds, a lot of cards, they'll say 3,000 megabytes a second. That may be 3,000 megabytes a second for a burst, and that's fine for still photography if we're just shooting a burst of images. But if we're moving on to shoot cinema, we're shooting 8K, we're shooting 8K RAW, 6K 120, 4K 120, slow motion. That's just a lot of data. So on the capture side, I'm always thinking about that. But I'm also a filmmaker, photographer, cinematographer, where I'm trying to go with the smallest footprint as possible. It's not me and a whole crew. I don't have 28 guys with me. It's me, maybe an assistant, some athletes. So I'm trying to travel as light and fast as possible. And I'm looking for things which allow me, first of all, to get some sleep, because I don't want to be out there, with a slow card and a slow hard drive, because I want to get all that data off of those cards so that I know I've got the shots for that day and I can move on to the next thing. So been using these SanDisk G40s as well as the blade system in the field to back up those cards in the field, which is great, because these blades, for instance, the one in the middle there, 4 terabytes per little cartridge. So I can carry 16, 20 terabytes of storage in a relatively small amount of space, which is great. When I get back to the office, my main concern is big bucket storage. I'm shooting terabytes and terabytes. Not only am I shooting terabytes, but I'm working with Red Bull, and they've got petabytes of footage. And I want to be able to edit that as efficiently and quickly as possible. So when I go in the office, I'll take one of these 8-bay shuttles, which I think are 196 terabytes now. So the big one on the left there is now currently 196 terabytes. The one I have at home right now is 160. But you're thinking like, wow, 160 terabytes? You're like, that fills up pretty quickly when you're shooting 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 terabytes, or each project is 40 terabytes. So not only do I need to make sure that I have a big bucket storage, but I also want to have a sustained data transfer in and out, because I'm editing these videos. I'm not producing proxies, which is even more storage. I'm just, want to have the fastest throughput, basically. As well as I want redundancy, because I want these projects to I don't want a drive that's going to die in the middle of a project, because I need to have everything backed up. But I also want a RAID configuration, which is going to make me feel safe, because, get it, the market's tight right now, right? Everybody's talking about there's not a lot of jobs out there. And you can't really go to a client and say, well, it didn't really work out this time. It'll work next time. So this is kind of the suite of things I use. I'd say the main thing in my workflow right now is these 8-bay shuttles, which means it has 8 drives in it. And a lot over the years, people have been like, spinning drives are going to go away. And it just hasn't, SSD has not come up fast enough to be in a ballpark of price where we can have 196 terabytes of storage. I mean, I could, if I was like, Elon Musk, and be like, hey, I want 196 terabyte of SSD. But, for people in the real world, that is something that, is approachable. And in a professional workflow, these are great. So there's a few different options. Most of my stuff is stored locally because I need to access it quickly. For archival purposes, there is LTO or tape, which is very slow, but it's also archival. And those usually go on a shelf or in a safe deposit box. I also like to typically geographically separate my drives. For instance, when I'm out on a shoot and I have an assistant, we go out, we shoot motion or stills, and I will give my assistant one set of drives. I will take the other set of drives so that they're geographically separated. Typically, I go so far as to have us not be on the same airplane on the way home. Coming back from Iceland a few years ago, I got pulled aside by TSA, and they were like, your carnet is not correct. So they impounded all my gear for 3 weeks. But my assistant on a different flight skated through no problem. So I was able to go and start editing this project for the client, which they had a deadline. So geographically separating these things is a great idea. What's that? What's a carnet? A carnet is it's basically a passport for your gear. So you go out and you say, I have $100,000 in gear, and they don't, basically when you bring it in, they're like, oh, we're going to charge you taxes on this if you didn't. So that's basically showing that you brought this stuff from the United States to another country and brought it back.
So, excuse me, if you buy in London, you have to pay tax coming in, right?
Technically,
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah.
But I was in Iceland. There's no way. They have a 50% tax on electronics. So there's no way I'd ever buy hard drives and cameras in Iceland. It would be like twice as expensive as the US. Like, anyway, there's a lot of cloud options out there. You know, one size fits all. I store kind of my my selects, my portfolio, my A-grade clips in the cloud, whether that's S3, Dropbox, PhotoShelter, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's not really a one size fits all. It's whatever you would like to do. Little tip, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, housekeeping. Free software called Post Haste. What Post Haste does is a little plugin, and it will build whatever folder structure you want for your workflow. And I shoot stills and video. So I know when I go in and I say, create a new project, this folder structure is built the exact same way every time. So it's not like, did I call it big pics this time and small pics and high-res JPEGs and raw footage or, you know, uncut footage. It's always the same every time. This also helps when you're passing off projects between editors as well as colorists and things like that, sound designers, so that it's consistent every time. Everything lives in its own place, and it's just good housekeeping. Labeling your drives. I typically label all of my cards, all of my drives, and my personal preference is to label them with the date that they went into service. So I know, hey, my 196 terabyte drive is 5 years old. G-Tech has a 5-year warranty, which most people don't. But it's one of those things where I just want to know for my own, you know, because I'm doing this is they're paying me money to produce a product for them. I want to make sure that I don't have any hiccups or need to be rebuilding RAID sets and such. So I always put the date that it went in and such. This is a basic field workflow. I just picked up the ZR, and basically it goes onto whatever card or media. You know, typically I use SanDisk. From there it goes through the computer to G40 and or the Blade. And then I typically have another drive for my OS, which if you've ever had a computer crash in the field, there's nothing worse than resetting all of your preferences and everything else. But if you back up your OS, you go and you get a new computer. You know, if somebody spills coffee on your computer, it gets stolen. You plug in that hard drive, rebuild your laptop, and it looks like it was the day that you walked out. Another housekeeping thing, whether you use Lightroom, metadata is your friend. I know AI has come a long way in helping us find our cat photos and puppy photos and photos of our kid, but metadata goes a long way in, you know, as far as like geographic locations, who is in the shoot, which once that's baked into that file, it helps you find those things. Like if I'm looking for Ian Walsh, who's a Red Bull athlete, or Ian Walsh, Red Bull, I can just look in OS and be like Ian Walsh, and all my Ian Walsh pictures show up so that I actually can find them if a client were to call and ask to purchase those things. Photo Mechanic is the fastest way. It's actually just looking at the images themselves. It's not trying to manipulate those images. It's just a browsing software. So basically, in the field, capture everything onto whatever the media the camera or the drone takes, whether that's CF Express Type B, SD, or et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, I'm using whatever flavors. And I basically want to have 3 copies of everything all the time. As far as like the pro video stuff, you know, things are going through what's called the G-Dock. I hope they keep that thing. G-Dock would be amazing to have, which is basically just a big card reader. So different kinds of capacities and such, and so on and so forth. Again, 3 copies of everything. Moving data back and forth. There's a couple options. You know, like I said, I have 160 terabyte drives, and I'm not just using the OS to drag and drop these things. Offshoot or ChronoSync will actually give you checksums, which will say, when it's done, it'll say there's 160,000 images, this many bytes of images here, and it basically cross-references those so you know that every bit of that data is there so you can move forward, especially when, you know, remember the days of Firewire, 400, 800, USB A, B, now we're on C, you know, things keep moving forward. So knowing that that data is good moving forward, allows you to, sleep well at night. Back in the studio, yeah.
I was wondering, how come sometimes I notice I'll copy stuff from one drive to another drive, and I have 2 copies, right? They'll have the exact same amount of files, like 100 files, 100 files, but the size is different.
So it really depends on. There's a couple different answers. There could be a sidecar file which didn't get copied, possibly because it's just something that's in the original file. Like, so for instance, there's an XMP file or something like that that is in that file or something like that. So essentially, it just sees that on the new drive, but it didn't take that into account in the original drive, if that makes any sense. So as long as the number of bytes, like when you look and it says how many bytes are there, as long as those two things match, you should be good.
So you're saying if I use
ChronoSync or offshoot. Yeah, the other great thing about using something like this, and if you ever work on like a big budget, I'm not a DIT, that's not what I want to do, but if you ever work on a big shoot and you're spending $100,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, you need to have proof that you did your due diligence in your copying and everything. So when offshoot will basically spit out an XML file that tells you, hey, this is the date it was copied, this is how much data was copied, so that you can basically look back and show that you proved. And another side note is you also want to have errors and omissions insurance, which is expensive, but instead of getting sued for $1 million, you may be covered as long as you did your due diligence in your workflow and such. Again, back to the studio, really the big 8-bay and or 4-bay drives, the G-Tech Studios are what I'm using for the most part. Because not only are they big bucket, but the bandwidth, because they're using basically all the bandwidth of the spinning drives together, you're getting 1,000 plus 2,000 megabytes a second in and out, which allows you to stream multi-thread 8K, 4K video and or slow motion, so that you're not getting, I don't know if you've ever edited video, but you're like, and it drops a frame, and it drops a frame. So that's where you want the speed to keep, to be able to keep up, because in those senses, time is money. And if you ever want to know, because there's somebody in all these companies' marketing department, and I'm not going to mention a brand, but they make a drive that's usually orange, and they say it's got Thunderbolt 4000, 100 terabytes a second, and you're like, wow, this is a fast drive. You're like, no, they're actually quoting the peripheral. That is the speed of Thunderbolt 4, but the drive itself may be only 5,400 RPMs, which is 138 megabytes a second or something like that. So you're never going to get that actual speed. If you ever want to know actually what speed your drives or cards are, you can use Blackmagic Speed Test, and that's a free download, and you can test your drives and know that when you go and you start working on a project that you're not going to have a problem. It's going to tell you, is it good for 8K? Is it good for 6K? Is it good for 4K? And see all those green checks. That's telling you that this is sufficient speed for in and out, which is, when you're editing, things are going back and forth as far as the data. This is going to tell you that you have a drive that's fast enough to keep up with your editing, essentially. So that's it. You guys have any questions? I know that was a quick and dirty presentation. Yes?
Just on photography info, when you're doing that portrait of Dubai, I think you have the panoramic.
Yep.
What focal length do you feel comfortable doing a panoramic at?
So
Like the widest would you do?
So that was shot with a 14 to 24 at 24.
Okay.
So, so in that sense, you can go into either basically Photoshop or Lightroom, and you can do lens correction, which is going to basically take away if there's any vignette, as well as kind of like straighten up your your barrel, but I also do a lot of them if I have the time with like a 50 millimeter lens. That's actually my preference. It just takes a lot more images to do that. I did a gigapixel project where I was doing like 300 to 400 images together, and with a 50, stitching them together. The working files were like 14 terabytes, and there's the only file extension that it's called a PSB, which is like Photoshop big. So, but yeah. So yeah, that's I'm fine with the 24. You know, as long as you do the lens correction and such. No worries.
The horse races. You said you shot it with a 600 millimeter lens, so quite some distance away. However, the horse's head's probably about 8 feet above the ground, but its eyes are at the horizon, which means that you weren't like up on some sort of tower.
No, I was kind of under. No, so this is a Kentucky Derby. This is where they're going to come around the corner. So you're like basically at the corner as they're at the straightaway. So I basically just posted up there, and you know, as they came by, you know, was like, and that's from the Derby. But I did a test shoot the day prior because there's more races than just the Kentucky Derby, and I was like, all right, can I do 1/30th? Nope. Can I do 1/45th? Nope. Can I do 1/5? Nope. And then finally 1/60th, it worked. So, okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we have a raffle. Do we have something?
Raffle? Yes, raffle outside in like 10 minutes or so.
Okay, cool.
Head on out and we will get that going.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.